When moving a loved one to a long-term care facility, whether it's a nursing home or an adult living facility or some other place, we often wonder how we're going to pay for that care. How are we going to do it without getting wiped out? How are we going to keep enough money to keep our spouse safe? How are we going to preserve assets to pass them on to our kids? There's a number of stages that we go through in terms of planning, and I'm going to walk you through those. The first one is just your regular estate planning documents, your will, your general durable power of attorney, which takes care of your finance and your real estate, your healthcare power of attorney, which can help address healthcare concerns if you're not able to do that. As long as you're able to make your own decisions, those documents really won't come into play. But if there is a capacity issue or a medical issue or some sort of condition that prevents you from making those decisions, these are great documents to have in place. If you have your will and you just die, we can handle that in an after-death transfer. If you don't just die and we start walking through how to preserve assets and go into a long-term care setting, then we've got the general durable and the healthcare to help us out when and if we're not able to make those decisions ourselves. Step 2 is the actual asset preservation plan. It means that there are certain things that you're allowed to have, not allowed to have, certain things you want to protect, certain things that you don't necessarily need to protect, but you need to retain enough to keep yourself safe. This is a huge part of our planning that we do right here. The third step is the long-term care itself, how we pay for it. We can use the VA. There are some limits to what they can provide us. We can use private pay, which can be very, very expensive and wipe entire estates out. So not really my favorite option, but sometimes we have to use some of that. There's also a long-term care policy that some people will have, 3, 5, 7-year policy. Sometimes it works really well. Sometimes there's a little bit of a deficit and we have to make up for it. And then there's also Medicaid. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about Medicaid here as well. Medicaid will cover care, whether you are in need of ADLs, activity of daily living help, or you need a doctor or nurse within a 24-hour period. This is different than Medicare. Medicare is your basic healthcare plan with your supplement, much like you had when you were working or that the federal government provided or something like this. Medicaid and these other programs kind of pick up the pieces or pick up the costs when that Medicare says, no way, I'm not paying for it. And Medicaid will pay for care at home. It'll pay for it in an adult living facility. It'll pay for it in an adult family home. It'll pay for it in a nursing home and a memory care unit. And these costs can get really, really huge, like I said, and wipe people out. But if you do the proper planning here, by the time we get here, we kind of bubble wrap the stuff that we want to keep safe. So moving on with this Medicaid a little bit further, in order to get them to pay for your care, there are 3 tests that you have to meet. One is that you have to have a need. It's pretty obvious at that point in time. The second one is they're going to look at your income to make sure that you can't actually afford to pay for your own care. And also, given some situations, they'll be able to transfer some of your income to your spouse as well. And the third test is your assets. And this is the one that everybody gets freaked out about. And you hear people say, the state took my stuff, or I've spent everything down to nothing. That's this third test. But if you handle this third test well and you do proper planning with it, in many cases, in most cases, we can preserve something for the kids, for the surviving spouse, and for you to make sure, again, that you are safe during the time that you're getting care. There are assets that you're allowed to have and assets that you're not allowed to have. So what we try to do is get the assets that you're not allowed to have into a position where they're safe, where you can keep them. If they are over here, we want to make sure that if it's a home, it can't be liened. So it just takes time, it takes proper planning. A lot of times people will come and see me here. It's crisis mode. There was a stroke, we didn't see it coming, that kind of thing. And we have to go through steps 1 and then steps 2 and then step 3 before we can even get to here, even to apply for Medicaid. If you do the steps early enough here and here, that makes this a lot easier. But this is a very easy thing to put off, right? We all know this. So if you do just show up here, you're not out of options. There's definitely options. We may not be able to preserve as much, but we still have the ability to different resources to go ahead and use to pay for our care. Then should you pass away, we move into the after-death transfers as well. So I don't want people to worry about whether they can get their care paid for. It does get a little bit more difficult if there isn't prior planning, and I do think it is easier if you start here and go through the steps. But if something comes up, you didn't see it coming, there are options that we would definitely take a look at to pay for that long-term care.